Hi, everyone, and welcome to week 6. This week, we're going to talk about stress management and practicing some self-care. The objectives for this week online are to be able to define stress, stressor, eustress, and distress, to be able to identify the physical responses to stress, define burnout and the stages of burnout theory, to practice ways to reduce and manage your own stress, and then list ways to improve your own self-care routine. Some of the items that are due this week include practicing the motivational interviewing with Gabe Turner and talking with patients about health risks. This week, your goal is to achieve a 60% on those 2 simulations. And then we have our discussion board and reflection journal. One thing to note is in class, we are going to cover chapters 10 and 11. Online this week, we are only covering chapter 12, which is stress management and self-care. One thing to note is stress is necessary. If we have too little stress, we are not motivated to do anything in life. We need an optimal level of stress to function. Too much stress, though, causes burnout and physical ailments. A stressor is anything that causes stress, and that is further defined into 2 categories. One is eustress, which is positive stress, and examples are getting a new job, buying a house, getting married. Stress can also be negative, and that is referred to as distress. And an example could be someone dying or getting sick. Some of the physical responses to stress include, and again, these are ways your body handles stress. Fatigue, which is being tired, getting headaches, changes in your sleeping pattern, either sleeping more or sleeping less, anxiety, memory impairment, an increased risk for developing a chronic condition such as depression, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and an increased risk for preterm delivery if you are pregnant, and that is delivering a baby before 37 weeks. And so it's important to recognize how we respond to stress. It is separated into 2 categories, our internal resources and our external resources. Our internal resources include having a sense of humor, patience, and the ability to put things in perspective. This is just a sample of the list. The list is much longer in your textbook, chapter 12. Some of the external resources that can help us manage stress include having strong friendships, having a sense of safety, so both at home, in the workplace, in your community, and having a supportive supervisor and supportive coworkers. When we ineffectively deal with stress, especially on the job, it can lead to burnout. And burnout is when a person reaches a point when the demands made on them over an extended period of time are just too great. And this can result in physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual burnout. A person experiences a personal fatigue, alienation, having a loss of energy. And this is sometimes experienced at higher rates by people working in the health profession or helping professions. So this would definitely fall under the work of community health workers. The stage theory of burnout has 3 stages. The first stage is physical warning signs, and these include the inability to shake off a lingering cold or fever, frequent headaches, sleeplessness. The thought of going to work loses its appeal, and it's important to recognize if you enter the first stage of burnout to start incorporating maybe some more stress management techniques and some more self-care so that you can stop yourself from going to second stage and third stage. So in the second stage, now we have some emotional and behavioral signs of burnout, and these include having angry outbursts, increased irritability, and obvious signs of impatience. In addition to having a suspicious attitude, meaning that you feel everyone is out to get you at work. And the third stage is a critical and severe stage, and includes intense feelings of loneliness and alienation. One of the ways to help reduce your chances of getting burnout is to regularly assess yourself for stress and burnout. Reflect on your exposure to stress and its impact on your life, either on a daily basis, a weekly basis, but you should constantly sort of take your pulse in terms of where are you in your stress levels. As you can see from this graph on the page, there is an optimal level of stress, right? You need a certain amount of stress to deal with everyday life. But when it starts too high is when we start encountering the negative aspects of stress. Another way is to ask someone who knows you well for feedback on your stress level. You can ask a friend or a spouse or a boyfriend or girlfriend to say, how do you see me right now? Do you see me as very stressed, or do you see me as pretty much normal? Sometimes when we're in a stress situation, we don't recognize that we are experiencing higher levels of stress, but often people who are close to us will recognize those higher levels of stress. And then finally, you can take a self-assessment to measure your own levels of stress. And I provided 2 examples of stress assessments on Blackboard, so be sure to check those out. It's really important to avoid burnout. And so one of the ways to avoid burnout is if you are experiencing high levels of stress, to be able to effectively manage those levels of stress, and that is by employing stress techniques. So one thing to help avoid burnout is to be aware of the initial signs of your stress reaction. So be aware, are you experiencing more headaches or sleeplessness, or you're sleeping too much? Be able to recognize those signs right away so that you can take steps and measures to reduce those levels of stress. You should also be able to develop your basic stress management skills. The better you are able to manage stress in everyday life, the more likely you will avoid burnout. And then again, be able to apply those stress management skills in real life. Practice those on a daily basis. I cannot stress how important this is. And lastly is to practice self-care. The old adverb on the airplanes, when the oxygen masks go down, you put yours on first before helping your child, because if you're not around, they're not going to have any help or support. The same goes for in life. You have to help yourself first and care for yourself first before you are able to care for others. Self-care includes eating healthy, reduce or avoid caffeine intake, alcohol intake, high sugar foods. The better that you eat healthy, that also impacts your level of stress and how you're able to manage life. Physical activity is very important in life for a variety of reasons, but in talking about stress management, it is one of the most effective ways to deal with stress. Practice mindfulness techniques. And again, there is a website provided on Blackboard that will guide you through some mindfulness exercises, as well as in your textbook, chapter 12. And then again, practice your self-management techniques. This concludes our video for this week. Again, if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to email me or contact me. Have a wonderful week.